I've published 1,350 pieces of content on Instagram. That means I've been posting daily content, or on average, daily content for 3 years, 8 months, and I think like 15 days. I don't really know if the math is accurate. And as a result, I've learned an enormous amount about what it takes to build a personal brand, create content online, and just generally garner an audience for the things that you say and the things you want to do. Over that time, I've built my audience to 416,000 on Instagram, like 30-ish thousand here on YouTube, and I think another 90 or so thousand across TikTok, Twitter, or X now, and LinkedIn. So I know a lot about this stuff, and as a result, I see a lot of people making these giant fuck-ups that is holding them back from being able to achieve the same results that I've been fortunate enough to achieve. So in today's video, I want to share with you the 5 biggest mistakes that I see most content creators making that is holding them back from being able to build the personal brand they want and in turn build their online business. But before I do any of that, in case you're sitting there wondering right now, who the fuck is this guy? Even though I just showed you my Instagram, who the fuck is this guy and why should I listen to him? My name's Tom Noske. I'm a content creator and have been since 2017. And then in the last 2 years, I've built my online education business from 0 to 7 figures per year. And now with this YouTube channel, I'm trying to make videos to help, hopefully, some of you do the same. Mistake number 1 is they target a niche instead of targeting an avatar. Now, the idea of having a niche on social media is not necessarily bad advice. I don't think it's completely wrong. I think it's just lazy advice and doesn't cover the entire picture of what it actually means to build an audience online. I think the real target that you should actually focus on is an avatar, not a thing. The idea of filmmaking being a niche, or personal finance or business being a niche, is fucking stupid. Those aren't niches, they're things. And if you orientate your entire brand around a thing, your brand can never surpass the popularity of that thing. If you attach your brand, your name, your likeness to filmmaking, your brand and your business can only ever get as big as filmmaking. The idea of completely ignoring your uniqueness, the stuff that makes you, your personal interests, and then orientating every piece of content you make, everything you do online around a particular thing is severely limiting your ability to grow. If we think about the biggest personal brands in the space, the biggest people that we're all most drawn to, it's never ever because of what they do. It's never because of one niche. It's never because of one tiny insignificant idea that they've attached themselves to. It's always because of them. It's because of the people they are. It's because of the way they make us feel. It's because for whatever reason, when they speak and we listen to their content, we feel better for having consumed it. And that is entirely based on who that person is, not what they do. And so this idea of targeting avatar instead of a niche allows you to do that because you're now targeting a person. And when you target a person, your content no longer has to be confined within this tiny little box of what it means to be a filmmaker or in personal finance or an online business, whatever the fuck those things mean. You can make anything as long as that person relates to it, is inspired by it, is educated, is informed by it, whatever it is, you can make anything that helps that particular person. And I think the easiest way to do this, and I've spoken about this before, is to orientate your content around a previous version of you. Identify a particular version of you in your past, go down to the year, what you were going through, how much money you had, what were your experiences, what were your fears, what were your goals, everything that made that particular version of you memorable. Target that person. Make content that that person would find relatable. Make content that that person would find inspiring. Make content that that person would find educational. And all of those things will draw that person into your world, and then it's your job to push them to your offers, to your business, to whatever you do. It's okay for your business to be niched. My business is super niched, but my content is not. And that's because I'm not just trying to educate you. I'm not just trying to inform or inspire or do one thing. I'm trying to draw a big group of people into my world based on the avatars that I've created, the specific people, their age, their demographic, their income, their ideas, their fears, their desires. I've identified those 2 people, 2 because I have a male and female version that I actually have given names, faces, everything, that I then target in all of my content. And that allows me to make anything as long as that person finds it relatable, inspiring, educational, informative, whatever it is. I can make anything as long as it fits that bucket. And so if you feel called out right now by what I've just said, and you do orientate yourself around filmmaking, and you think your entire brand needs to revolve around filmmaking, or you've attached your entire brand to online business or personal finance or whatever it is, please understand that you can have that be an aspect of your personal brand. If you're an expert at personal finance, if you love personal finance, that's okay. You can continue making content about that thing, but understand that personal finance is something that orbits your brand. It's not the other way around. You are not attaching yourself, your likeness, your uniqueness to personal finance. Personal finance is attached to you. And if you can do the other way around, if you can do it like that, then your brand can surpass personal finance. Your brand can grow bigger than the box that you placed it within. Number 2 is they're not relatable. I think one of the most difficult things to do when you first start making content online is to be genuine and authentic and real. And I know that sounds like fluffy advice. I hate giving advice that's kind of shitty and airy-fairy and up in the air and doesn't really say anything, but it's true. One of the most difficult things to do when you first start out is to be authentic. And the reason being is that it's fucking scary. It's scary to get on camera and talk about the real stuff. It's scary to get on camera and be yourself. It's much easier to hide your personality behind a script or hide your personality behind an idea, which is why, again, we pick niches, because we can hide ourselves behind the niche of filmmaking. We can hide ourselves behind the script that we wrote. We can keep criticism at arm's length. But if you can just get on camera and be authentic and be real and be relatable, then people will start to see you as a real living, breathing human being. And when people see you as a real living, breathing human being in your content, they will relate to you so much more. And when people relate to you, they trust you. I know it's kind of this weird thing to say be more relatable, but tactically all that means is share more than just your wins. Don't just make educational videos. Don't just make videos about the top however many tips you have on X outcome. Don't just try to help people do something. Share your life. Share bits and pieces of the things that you're going through. Draw from personal stories to share informative lessons. I do this all the time in my content. I wrote an email the other day about mowing my fucking lawn. I was out mowing my lawn and I realized that our garden was getting away from me, and so I needed to find a landscaper. And then I went online, I started looking at landscapers in my area, and I noticed that one of them had a landing page that was so much better than the rest, and honestly, one of the better landing pages I've seen, full stop, and it was a landscaper. And I was so taken back by how good this landing page was for a landscaper that I wrote an email about it, teaching the importance of using landing pages. That is so much more compelling than me just getting on and teaching about landing pages. I wrote another email the other day about my love for watching Bathurst. If any of you are from Australia, I fucking love V8 supercars, or supercars now. My family has a history in V8 supercars. My dad and my older brother both raced. So I wrote an email about my passion for V8 supercars and Bathurst, and how Bathurst every year is kind of like my bogan Christmas. And so I wrote this email talking about that and then segued it into the value of being unique and being yourself in your content and your emails. And suddenly I'm able to share a lesson whilst being relatable and real. And the power of doing that in your content means that you'll stand out like a sore thumb, because most people don't share the losses. These fucking dorks on Instagram and YouTube who share nothing but the Rolexes they're wearing and the fucking cars they're driving and the houses they live in, how much fucking money they're making, but they never, ever, ever, ever share the real stuff. No one finds them relatable. No one does. And so if you can be the person who shares the days where you wake up and you're like, you know what, I feel like fucking shit today and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna work towards it anyway, people will be like magnets to you because you're so much more compelling. And then when you do win, people will cheer for you because they feel like you've actually achieved something. You're not this robot that just spawned into reality and suddenly had all this success. You actually have a story. The way I try to teach this for my students is with an idea I call context setting. And this idea is that whenever you make a piece of content, you have your entire history as context underlying that piece of content. Me right now, as I share these lessons, I have all of the context of the last 8 years of building my brand, building my business behind these lessons. So when I speak to you, it feels compelling for me, but you guys don't know any of that story. You know nothing about what I've experienced, although if you follow me on Instagram, you definitely do because I share it. But if you're new to this channel, if this is the first time you're experiencing this, you know nothing about that story. And so as a result, these lessons that I'm sharing with you carry so much less weight because you don't know the context behind the lessons. And so this idea of context setting means that for most people, they think making content about themselves or their story or their past or a My Story video is kind of a waste of time because it's like, well, it doesn't help my audience. It's not going to turn followers into customers. It's all this bullshit. When in reality, if you do that, it'll make the impact of the rest of your content so much more impactful because the context will be there. People will understand why you're teaching the lessons because they've got the context for why that lesson exists in your life. And so if you can provide people with context for why you're doing the things that you do, that'll help them understand your content better, and that'll increase the effectiveness of literally everything else you make. The perfect example of this in the real world that all of you will understand is that a human spider with superhuman strength that can climb on ceilings and up walls and swing from skyscrapers is not very relatable. And I don't think anyone would give a fuck about that story because it's an impossibility. None of us can relate to the idea of being bitten by a radioactive spider and then suddenly be given superhuman strength and spider-like abilities. But you know what is relatable? An orphan who grew up with his auntie and uncle and then watched his uncle be shot in the street. That is a much more relatable story. And as a result, that context allows us to bridge the gap of relatability to a human spider who can swing from fucking skyscrapers. The only reason we care about Spider-Man and Peter Parker is because of the context and his origin story. And so if you're creating content, you need to share your origin story. You need to share the reason why any of what you share exists. Why do you care about this stuff? If you're in personal finance, what story do you have from your childhood that made you so fixated on this idea of preserving wealth? Why do you care about that? If you love filmmaking, why? All of this stuff is important because it'll provide the context through which people see the rest of your content. Number 3, and I'm sorry if some of you feel called out for this one, but your content is fucking boring. As content creation has become more and more appealing and people have flooded into the market, we've seen the rise of this ChatGPT written regurgitated bullshit, these videos that are just 10 tips on achieving fucking whatever outcome with no personality. There's no uniqueness. You could take that script and literally give it to anyone else and no one would bat an eye. No one would be like, wow, that's weird that that person's speaking from that person's perspective. There's no uniqueness between the content, and that makes your content fucking boring. If everything that you post online is just helping someone achieve X outcome through a list of solutions that you could find anywhere online, it doesn't belong on your fucking page. As a general rule of thumb, if anyone else could post what you've posted on their page and no one would bat an eye, it doesn't belong on your page. It doesn't. If what you're making is not unique and anyone else could take that script, regurgitate it, and no one would even fucking notice, it doesn't belong in your content. You have to be unique. And when I say boring or your content's boring, it doesn't mean you need to have these flashy graphics or crazy editing or incredible lighting or all of this stuff, although this is valuable and the stuff that I do does help move the needle. At the end of the day, the number one thing you can do is be unique. Be yourself. Do what only you can do. Say what only you can say. If you can find a way to be yourself in your content, it doesn't even matter what you're talking about because no one else is going to be able to replicate it. No one else can say your exact words exactly the way you say them because you're the only person that can say those things. Yes, you can give value like I am today with these 5 lessons that I've learned over the last 8 years of being a content creator, or the last 1,350 posts on social. But no one else can say this the exact way I'm saying it because I'm just being myself. I'm just fucking ranting at you right now. And so what I say will break through. And the same can go for your content. You have to find a way to be unique. You have to find a way to bring yourself out. And if you can do that, you'll never be boring because no one else can replicate you. Number 4, you're not consistent. And you're not consistent because you're terrified of posting something that isn't perfect. One of the biggest mistakes that I see most beginner content creators making is that they recognize or really viscerally recognize the delta between where they are and what they're capable of making and where they want to go. And that leads to inaction because they're scared of publishing anything that isn't up to the level that they expect of themselves. And that causes them to not show up consistently. That causes them to only create when they feel like they're capable of making their best, without understanding that it's only really 5% of your entire body of work that's actually going to move the needle. 95% of the shit I make firmly goes into the bucket of I just made this to make progress. And whether that progress was internally, so I was learning to be a better content creator, I was learning to speak better and it's not going to perform my best, or it was just to get something out again so I was consistent that day. Most of my content falls in that bucket. And you really need to understand that yes, quality matters. It does a lot. I have an entire program online, Video Creator Academy, focused on producing quality content because I do think that quality is the only true pattern interrupt. But if your equilibrium between quality and consistency looks like this, and you're all the way over here only producing something every 2 to 3 weeks, you get burnt out all the time and you're only able to be consistent when you have an abundance of time and inspiration and energy, then something needs to change. You have to lower your expectations enough that your consistency can come up. And that's gonna look different for all of you. Everyone's gonna have a different style of creating content. For some of you, that means doing what I do, where I just get on camera and I fucking rant, and that's what the video ends up being. And so I'm all the way in consistency, but then I can match that by making the video look great. I can make my audio sound great. I can make my lighting look great. I can spend a bit more time setting up this scene the way that I do so that my content or my quality can match that consistency. I front load my quality, and so in the videos, I don't have to worry about it as much. It's gonna be different for all of you, but you have to find that equilibrium. You have to find a way to post daily content no matter what. And when I say daily, yeah, for social, for short form, daily. But if it's YouTube, you have to post weekly. If whatever you're doing, there is a minimum amount of consistency that's required to move the needle. And if you're not meeting that, something needs to change. The biggest lesson that kind of changed this for me, because I was a classic perfectionist. I was honestly completely crippled by it for years. I always saw everyone else that I knew as kind of better at everything than I was. I was extremely self-critical and I always saw everything I made as garbage. And it stifled my ability to create consistently for years. Up until, honestly, this year. I think honestly that I've finally made changes this year that have contributed to my ability to be consistent more than any year prior. And I've been doing this a long time. And the biggest lesson that helped me overcome that perfectionism, that got me away from being maniacally obsessed with perfecting everything I do, is the understanding that perfectionism internally is a zero-sum game. Chasing perfection internally is only hurting you. It's only hurting you. It is not a good thing. It is akin to self-sabotage, in my opinion. Having a perfectionist mindset is holding you back from being able to reach your potential. Because here's the reality. The goal of creating art online, the goal of creating content, the goal of doing any of this is not to create something that you see as perfect. The goal of creating content online is to post so much work and get so good that people or your audience see your terrible work that you think is terrible as perfect. The best example of this is I often finish these video recordings and I go out to my fiance Makili and I tell her that was shit. But every single week when I publish them, comments come in at the bottom of the videos telling me how great the video was. Regardless of how shit I felt it was, regardless of how self-critical I am of the thing I'm producing, what I think is shit, other people see as perfect. And that is the goal of being a content creator. Because the better you get internally, the further perfectionism gets away from you. If you get really good at creating content, guess what? Your idea of perfect gets so much further down the road. So if you're chasing your own idea of perfection, you're never gonna get there. But if you're chasing your audience's idea of perfection, you can get there far quicker, far easier than you think. All you have to do is make an enormous amount of content and you'll get so good that you can turn the camera on, riff for 20 minutes, publish it online in an hour, and people will look at that as perfection. That is the goal of being a content creator. And if you are someone who's stuck in this cycle of perfectionism where you cannot produce something consistently, something needs to change. whether it be your expectations around content, whether it be your idea of perfectionism, or whether it be your pursuit of perfectionism altogether. The biggest thing that helped me is just taking a step back, going 180 degrees and going, you know what, fuck this. I'm done chasing perfectionism. I don't care about the quality of my content anymore. I'm gonna make stuff consistently and get better incrementally over time. That is my entire goal now, because I know in my gut that if I let myself be consumed by how good these are each week, I won't make them consistently enough to succeed. And so I can comfortably ignore that part of my brain that tries to urge me to get back on the cycle of perfection. It is a fucking waste of time. Number 5, and this one's more of a business related one, or at least the consequences of this mistake are business related, but you're not doing what I call showing your cards. When you post content online, when you start producing content with the intention of building a personal brand, you have to be honest with your intentions. You have to be. You have to be crystal clear with your audience about exactly what your intentions are. And what I mean by this is most creators, and I think this is just a creative thing in general, or a thing that creatives suffer with, is they're so terrified of letting themselves succumb to the desire to make money. They think that the desire to make money, or the idea of being motivated by making money, somehow makes them a bad person. The issue that this creates is that a lot of people start by treating this like they're a charity. They'll make content for free. They'll give away their shit for free. They'll rely on AdSense and sponsorships and affiliate deals so they never have to charge their audience. They talk about how altruistic they are, and when they inevitably have to make money, because everything in your life fucking costs money, everything I have in this room cost me money, was a trade of value between me and the business I bought it from. And so if I don't make fucking money, I don't get to live. And that is a reality that all of you will encounter as a creator. I am incredibly motivated by money. Incredibly motivated by money. But the reason why it's not an issue is because I'm honest about it. I tell my audience that I'm motivated by money. I'm open about the fact that I am here. I'm making content to make a lot of money, but I'm gonna do so by solving your problems. And because I'm honest about that, my audience is fine with it. I sent an email a couple of months ago promoting my live cohort, Time to Build, where I wrote an entire email about my love or my passion for motorsport and how my dream car is an olive green 992 GT3 RS. And I wrote this entire email about my passion for motorsport, my family's history with motorsport, my desire to buy a car that I can take to the track, and all of this stuff. I spent this long email writing about it. And at the very bottom, I said a line and I was like, by the way, if you want to help me get allocation of my brand new olive green 992 GT3 RS soon, go and buy Time to Build. And the reaction, rather than being repulsed, rather than being resentful, rather than being angry, was a whole group of my audience praising me for that honesty. There was a whole group of people that were like, I've never seen someone be so honest in their marketing before. And that had an impact because I was honest about my intentions. I was honest about the fact that yes, I sell courses and I'm gonna try buy a Porsche at some point in my future. And that's okay. You can be honest about your intentions of making money. It doesn't make you a bad person. One line that I think is really important to remember, and I'm gonna be a bit honest here, is that a lot of people are scared to build their business online. A lot of people are scared to turn content creation or start teaching in some capacity, give value to the world in exchange for dollars. And they're scared to do this because there are a number of people in this space, a number of bad actors in this space. I'm not going to name anyone, but a lot of them tend to live in fucking Dubai. There are a lot of bad actors in this space that give the entire space a bad name. And so I have a lot of friends or a lot of students who come to me and they're concerned about being labeled as one of these people, or being labeled as a scam, or being identified in that group of people. And you really need to remind yourself that just because you're motivated by money, and just because you want to sell a program teaching a particular skill to a group of people that would value that skill, doesn't make you a bad person. If you're a good person and you have good intentions and you're watching this video right now and you're worried about selling a course online because you're worried that by selling your knowledge, you'll magically become one of these scam artists or bad people that fuck people over, please try to remember that if you're a good person, you're not gonna magically become a bad person just because you monetize your knowledge online. You're not going to magically become a cunt just because you sell a course. It's not going to happen. A lot of these people, these bad actors that give this entire space a bad name, were shitty people to begin with. They sucked. They sucked. And they just decided to monetize with something that made their shitty personality, their shitty intentions, easily monetizable. So understand that if you're a good person, you're not going to magically become a bad person just because you try to monetize your knowledge. So show your cards. From day one, be honest about your intentions. If you're motivated by money, share that motivation. Tell people why you're motivated about money. For me, that motivation comes from my childhood. I grew up in a pretty well-off family. We weren't crazy, but we had a bit of money. We were able to go on holidays every year. We lived in a big house and I was able to go to a good school. And then when I was 15 years old, my dad went bankrupt. He got involved with a business partner that was one of these fucking characters, a bit of a cunt, and that resulted in lawsuits and issues. And over the next 3 years, between I think 2011 and 2014, he went bankrupt and we lost everything. We lost our house. I got pulled over by the cops driving my own car that I bought, and it was seized by the police because it was insured in my dad's business, and this guy labeled us as a stolen vehicle. I went through a whole bunch of crazy shit that I've not shared anywhere online before. And as a result of going through that experience of being really well off and having a life that was fucking awesome when I was a child, and I was really proud of my dad for being able to provide us with, to then going all the way to, now my parents don't have enough money to do much and they're not going to have a retirement, and it scares the fuck out of me. But that process of going through that and experiencing that downfall has created a motivation in me to help my parents, or help give them the life that they gave me for the first 15 years of my life. And that has made me extraordinarily motivated by money, because now I'm fighting to try and create that life for my family. And that's why I'm so motivated by money. And I think if you can be honest about your intentions, if you can share the real stuff, if you can be real from day one, if you can show your cards, so to speak, then people will root for you. People will be excited when you win. When you share a product, people won't be mad about the advertisements. People won't be shitty about you trying to sell the stuff that you sell. They'll be proud of you, because they're in your corner from day one. You're going to end up with more of the kind of people that root for people's success, not try to see their downfall. I bought a Rolex recently, and it was a big moment for me because I've wanted this for a very long time, and I thought it was a cool moment, and I shared it with my email list, and people were super fucking proud. Even to this point, I bumped into someone recently, or was recognized in public, and someone came up to me and they were like, "Dude, congrats about the Rolex." And it's like, that only happens because I was honest about my intentions. If I had spoken about altruism and, never charging people and only relying on other companies and never going to make you spend any money with me, but then I went and bought a fucking Rolex, that is a dichotomy that's going to create distrust. So show your cards. Be real and honest about your intentions. This one took a turn that I didn't expect, but I hope this video helps. Genuinely, I hope it helps. And I'll see you in the next one.